All right, Unreal is opened up. We're using 4.23, and when we open it up, it's going to look like this. It's going to say, do we want to use Blueprints, C++, or do something that's called the Unreal Studio, which is another enterprise level thing they're trying to sell. We're going to be using a visual coding, node-based coding data flow language called Blueprints, and we're not going to do that much of it. We're just going to do a little bit, but we're not doing any C++. It's out of the scope of this class. If we need any C++, we'll hire somebody to come in and do it for us. That's my attitude. I don't really know it. So you can see we have all these templates. We have, if we want to make a little first-person shooter where we have like a little gun, we have that. If we want to fly around, that's built in. AR has a template. We can remake Marble Madness. There's all sorts of stuff that's advanced. Vehicles, if we were doing a VR project, we could start off with this. It would give us a teleporting character that we can use right out of the bag. So here's all these templates we can start off with. We're going to start with the blank one just to keep it so we can earn everything we do. I don't want to have load in a bunch of junk that we don't understand how it works. Down here, I can choose that I'm going to do desktop. I'm not making it for a phone. I do maximum quality. And then there's a thing called starter kit, a starter content. It's 600 megabytes of like doors and stairs and fires and grasses and stuff like that. I'm going to put this in here, but don't do it normally when you're doing a project because, as you can imagine, if you start 8 projects, that's 4 gigabytes of stuff. It all adds up, and we have to be economical with that stuff. We do need something to manipulate, so let's say yes to starter content. And this will be called ETS, Emerging Technology and Storytelling 2020. And I'm going to put it on a storage drive. Again, when you start dealing with these different file sizes, large file sizes, your operating system, you usually want to put on your fastest drive. And I have 3 drives in this computer. So I have a C drive, which is just like 250 gigabytes, and it's what's called an M2 solid state drive. Are you familiar with this this size format? It looks like it's RAM. This is the fastest you can do on a laptop. And I highly recommend if you're ever buying a new, it's called M2 SSD. And this is what it looks like. It looks like it's RAM. Right? It's super expensive because it's the newer, faster thing. This data drive is what's called an HDD. Anyone know what a hard disk drive looks like? It's actually a mechanical spinning platter on it. It's actually mechanical, so it's much slower. It's great for storage because they're super cheap.
And now it's a glorified record player.
Right? So literally that thing is spinning and storing data on it like it was a CD-ROM or something. So this is really cheap, and you buy like a 2 terabyte one, you throw it in there, and you put all your projects on there. And that's where it's stored from. The read-write speed's fast enough that it doesn't matter about that. And then I often, whenever I'm doing like a client project that I want to have be super crazy fast, then I usually put another M2 drive and I put it on. That's just those projects that are important. So like school stuff's here, client stuff is here. So anyway, I bought this computer because I can add one more if I needed to. It also hurts my back a lot when I walk around. So anyway, back to creating a project from scratch. And let's, besides the people who've already taken a class with me, who else has opened up the Unreal Engine before? You have. Anyone else? You've opened it up? How far have you gotten with it?
So last semester I had the start class, and I ended up doing a project for 10 days.
Did you taught yourself, or was it being taught in the class?
No, I taught myself and a friend.
Oh, cool. Well, that's pretty courageous of you. Did you have fun?
Well, personally, I feel like Unreal is much more recent than Unity.
Yeah.
And somehow I feel like the lighting in Unreal is prettier.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's kind of fun.
You could tweak the Unity stuff to make it look as good. But yeah, I find that once you get past it's like when you run into a problem you can't solve in Unreal, you're fucked unless you can hire somebody who's like amazing. But in Unity, everyone can figure out everything, kind of thing. So it's like once you get going with Unreal, it's I find it way easier to do. All right. So anyone know what this kind of chair is called? This is completely outside the scope of this class. It's called an Ames chair. No, okay. Anyway, this is our Ames chair. So we open up everything, and here we are. We're in Unreal. All right.
That's what the offices at Unreal look like.
Anyone play first-person shooters? First-person shooters. What keys do you use to move forward and strafe? You get used to WASD, okay? So this is how we're going to navigate the world of Unreal. And you can still use arrow keys, but I highly recommend getting into WASD. It'll be much more faster to manipulate your world, okay? So the main thing, obviously, right here we're all looking at is this viewport. This is what our scene is, and we're going to navigate it by... also, I recommend getting a mouse. Like a $2 mouse can save your hide. Really speed things up. So I'm going to use my right mouse button. I'm going to move around right there. And then I use these WASD keys, and I can move backwards and forwards and left and right. I highly recommend, like, this is the stuff, and this is the time now. Get used to this is called tumbling. Get used to tumbling around your viewport, right? It'll make you much more efficient if you know how to navigate around your scene. Okay? Let's just talk just about the viewport itself really quickly so you guys know what's happening here. Here are the ways you can manipulate your transform. Right? Anyone knows any coding knows your transform is your location, your rotation, and your scale. Okay? If I want to choose my Ames chair and I want to turn it into a couch, right? I don't want to. Well, I can move the position. Right? I see how I can drag that handle. I can drag each of the individual handles. No problem. If I want to move it everywhere on this plane of both this arrow and that arrow, I can grab it between them. And I can go anywhere there. And the same way I could do it anywhere in this plane. Right? And then if I want to move all of them anywhere I want to, I just choose right in the middle, and I can go anywhere I want to. Okay? And I can always undo, and there's many levels of undo. Let us, right now we are in, so that's move, that's rotation, the same way. All the things. And then scale. Right now it's tall chair. Simple enough. Right now you see that this axis seems to be perpendicular with the thing. So if I do this, I've got a couch now. Right? If only we could do that all the time. Maybe it's a little stretched, but there it is. Makes sense. What we have here is you see how the arrows aren't kind of aligned with the origin of the asset right here. This is switching between global and local settings. So local, this knows the way the asset was made. This is me referencing the world. I want to look at the worlds left and right. I'm right here, and this is the local. And then what these three areas right here are snapping. You notice that when I move up a little bit, it's like jagged. Those are in increments of 10 units. A unit in Unreal is in a centimeter. So it's moving at 10 centimeters each time. In the same way when I rotate, it's rotating in degrees, 10, 20, 30, right? And that could be turned off by turning off the snapping. Last one here is speed, and it's how fast I can move in and out. If you're making a big world, you want to go fast. Oh my God. And if you want to go slow to really get into some details, you're going to come in here and really just take forever to get there. You can also, this will navigate us over to the outliner. This is everything that's in your world. Everything that's here is represented by something here. And if I double click on something, I'm there. And it's still moving really slowly though. Alright, so now you get used to these things. Sometimes you want to make a really big floor when you start off. And there you go, you have a big floor. And then you want to move it. And then you want to delete to get rid of something. There you go. So obviously chair is a chair, floor is a floor. And as you see as I navigate these things, it changes this panel underneath. This is the real beauty of the game engines, is that it gives you all this information that is exposed that you could just use checkboxes. You don't have to code this stuff, where if I was saying if you were making a game engine out of Open Frameworks or Cinder, you'd have to code to be able to access all this information. So it's really great that if I wanted to change what that mesh was, I can switch it out right here by saying, well, yeah, sure, it's called table, but I really want it to be a window frame. Table's now a window frame. All right, and then this right here is the material Materials. This is what the shader is on top of it. We'll get to materials a little later. So right now we can make anything we want to. I can make it look like it's grass. Cool. And then do I want it to simulate physics? All right. So if I hit play, nothing. But if I want to simulate physics, I hit play. It fell on top of the... You saw that? What random chance that was going to happen? Okay, knock it off. Boink! Boink. There we go. There we go. Let's see, physics built in. It's a module. We turned on the module of physics in Unreal by using a checkbox. So oftentimes everything you need is in these details. There's just a lot of things here, right? Not only is there physics, I can say things about how it accepts shadows, how I want the collisions to actually look, and all that kind of stuff. So this could be where a lot of the information gets a little dense, but usually the most things are right here at the beginning. Your transform, whether or not you can move it or not at runtime. So, for instance, I was telling you that game engines are lazy. They don't want to have to calculate things they don't need to calculate. Right now, shadows are turned off. Right, it doesn't want to calculate shadows, and these things aren't moving. If I wanted to use code to move them, it wouldn't do it because they're considered static. Once I say you're movable, it's now allocated resources to knowing this thing can be movable at any time, and that's using more of my computer. It's using more memory. It's using more everything. So this is just an idea to nail home the idea that I said earlier again about everything is the game engines are lazy by default. Right over here, moving around in a clockwise orientation, is our content browser. This is everything that's inside of our game. Okay, I said we had starter content, and here they are. And the starter content has architecture, right? So it has chairs and tables and doors with inside of walls and stuff. All right, build a quick little house. It has audio samples that we can bring in. We have fire sound and smoke sound, all that kind of stuff. It has a couple of what's called blueprints, right? We'll get into that in a second. Blueprints are not only when you want to do code, but it's also if you want to pair things together. I always want to have a candelabra with a wax candle and a flame. Well, instead of putting out a candelabra and a wax candle and a flame and a candelabra and a wax candle and a flame, you make a blueprint out of it so they're all connected, and then you're putting out that thing every single time, right? So that's another idea of blueprints. So like this is one of those things. It looks like it's upside down for some reason by default. There we go. And so you see, this is not only this item with this material, but it's also paired with a light that can also be moved around. So it's if you're doing a lot of repetitive tasks, then you should go ahead and think there might be a smarter way of doing it. All right. And then we have different maps we can load up. This one's called the minimal default. You can look at the starter map, which is another kind of like showcase of all the different materials, right? And let's say that let's go shopping, right? I always say we're going shopping, right? I want to go shopping for a hex tile. No, this one's changing color. Let's do a pulse. So I want this material. All right, I'm going to select this little sphere, and to find the material, I know that it would be my details. Oh, and look, there it is. There's that hex tile. It's called hex tile pulse. And now I really want it so I can put it on something else. If I use this little magnifying glass that you probably can't see right there, and if you watch the content browser, it's going to shoot right on over to the hex tiles, right? And now hex tiles are over here. So these are things that it's worth getting used to now, so that you know how to be more efficient as you. And you get a hex tile, and you get a hex tile, and you get a hex tile. All right. So that's kind of the way you navigate around. And if I wanted to do kind of the reverse, if I wanted this tile to have this rock slate, I do the arrow that's next to it, and it imports that in. So it goes both ways. It pushes and it pulls the content browser, or I can just drag it on there. And then if I just wanted some simple stuff that's built in the game engine, let's go ahead and bring out a cube, right? Bring out a cube and move it around and give it a hex tile. And bring out a cylinder, move it around. And so, you know, the first few weeks of assignments are really getting used to just being able to manipulate things in a meaningful way that makes sense to you. I'm not going to ask you to model anything, but just find stuff that makes sense that you like. Cool. So we have all that. If I hit play, you'll see physics happening here. Right, stuff's happening. The whole world's flying around, and I'm just WASDing around the world. Cool. So I think that's pretty much it for the layout of Unreal. I'm going to show you how it now interacts with the content browser, or sorry, with the launcher. This library, as I said, has so much thing underneath. And I can add a lot of these to my projects. If I think that I want ancient treasures in my project, I could click on the link to see what they are about. I'm like, oh, look at all the stuff it has. It's got all these treasure chests. Okay, so if I'm going to take this, I want my project, I'm going to say add to project, find my project, but you won't have this many when you start off. And then I want to call attention to this one thing right here. It says I just added 1 gigabyte to my project. That's 1 gigabyte of treasure. Now, I'm rich, but I'm now using up a lot of my storage space on my computer. So what I often do, and we'll get into this a little bit later, is what I usually do is I create like this junk project every semester, and I add things to that project first, and then only when I like something, you can move it directly to your project. It's a really efficient thing that I didn't know until I figured it out myself a year into it. I was like, these projects were like, I had a project, the first project I did was 60 gigabytes big, and then I was able to like figure out that, oh, I could get rid of all that, cut off all that fat, and it was only like a 2 gigabyte project. So there is. I mean, After Effects does it too. Like a lot of projects, do this kind of stuff where it trims off all the fat.
Hold on. I wish I did that. Okay.
Yeah, it packages it and puts it in a zip file and everything. Organizes everything. Yeah, bro. Yeah, bro. I'm gonna throw this project away, so I don't care. But I'll show that maybe next time when I create the project that we'll share for the rest of the semester. And I honestly didn't know it was gonna be this much.
I've been doing it manually for years.
What would you take out? Like, what would you?
So what I would do is maybe I'll just show this. I'll show you what I would do. All right, I'll use this as my junk project. How about that? So I'll all for the rest of the semester. So now this junk project has 600 megabytes of starter content and 1 gigabyte of treasure chests. I come back here and I see I have ancient treasures. The first place I want to go is usually try to find a map. Important little lesson here. If I want to find a map, I want to search here for file types. You see there's a hierarchy. Content is the root, and then underneath there I have 2 subfolders. Let's go to the root, and under this thing I have a thing called filters. And I can filter by every single kind of asset that could be inside my game engine. And if I filter by level, there are all the levels of my project. And if I just filter by ancient treasures, there's the 2 maps dealing with ancient treasure. I go to the overview. It's probably going to be like everything laid out in kind of like a shop kind of orientation where everything's like rows and columns of things. You see what I mean? I don't know. I've never looked at it. I think this was the free asset for this month. A terabyte of booty. Give it a second. You can allocate where it goes to. Again, I make it download to my storage drive. By default, it will be in your program files, though.
So if I put all of the external hard drive.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little scary to work off of external hard drives, but here, if you go to if I go to settings, I think I could say edit where everything goes to, and then everything. Oh, it looks like I am going to my C drive. I can fix that, and then I make it go to the storage drive so you can save some space.
It is a cache for Unreal.
Yeah, like this just pull down a terabyte, then migrate it into this project.
Got it.
And so, give it a second. I didn't just then because we'll just wait it out. So here you go. Like I said, it is a bunch of rows and columns of all the assets that are inside of the treasure thing. And it's doing this thing right here called compiling shaders. This just is based on how fast your graphics card is. The desktops that we have, the Mocap Studio, it doesn't even do this. It just immediately works. Laptops, it has to figure out ways to optimize. Again, it's doing this in the upfront so that it can be real time later on. But you can fully work on scenes before the assets are ready, before the shaders are done. So it's just a thing where everything has this world grid texture, and as soon as the shaders start compiling, they'll start popping in. And then now they can all be rendered in real time really fast as they come online. All right, so that's a demonstration, or that's the overview. Let's see the artistic.
So the artistic layout is the jump that you use?
No, the artistic layout is just like how they would put it together in a context so you can see how cool it could possibly be. So this is their idea of how they would want to use their treasure in a big pile like you were finding it at the bottom of a cave.
And you can move those items around?
So, and we're actually going to be doing that in a couple of weeks, where you're going to take a scene, you're like, oh, this is my scenography. This is framing these treasure chests in a beautiful way. If I light it with a certain way, I know that I want to look at this thing at a certain angle. And then we just take this, like, but only if this thing was just a little bit over this way. Mm-hmm. And if only this thing was just a little bit over this way. And this does not make me happy, And this light needs to be a little bit further up in this, like that. Like that's the extent of what world building we're doing, just manipulating the things that already exist. And then it looks like it has a whole bunch of cameras, so I'm sure if I hit play, it would go through like a cutscene. Maybe not. This thing around the perimeter is just like a post-processing vignetting. It'll also be a shader it fixes. I wonder how we get into there. Anyway, it's good to jump in these things and kind of mess around with them and try to break them, because at this point it doesn't matter. Cool. So now that we have this, I want this treasure chest in my other scene. I can right-click and say, browse to it. There's that treasure chest. And then I can add in more. Or I can just like Alt and click, and I can just duplicate. And I'm just manipulating my scene. I know it's called ornate chest. Come back to my starter content. Got levels. Turn on the filter. Go back to that minimal default. And then I know it was called ornate chest. And there it is. So this is this kind of stuff to get used to the layout and be much more quick around things later on. So I guess the one last thing I'll show, since we have a little bit of time, like a few seconds, is I'll show you how quickly to do interaction inside of a game engine, just so you guys get an idea. Okay, just so you can see blueprints and see how like pretty cool they are. So everything is done kind of like, what's an interaction you do in a game? You would like go to a door, and the door would open, and then you'd leave the door would close, or you'd flip a switch and light would go on. Right? It's like when I get to a proximity, when I get to a region, a thing happens. Right? And this is all done with collisions. These invisible boxes that you can't see when the game is rendering, but we can set them up, we can visually see them. So if I put a trigger box, so I'm going to trigger something. All right, here's a little trigger box. This thing won't be visible when I hit play. But I can make it big. If I want to, taller, doesn't matter. Above ground, I can move where I want to. I want to turn a light off and on. Give me a point light. There's that gorgeous Unreal lighting. And all I want to do is turn it off and on. So we'll deal with a few kind of blueprints. The main one is if you're doing an interaction once, remember instead of if you do something more than once, it's that you should come up with a better way of doing it. For right now, we're going to prototype in our level blueprint. This is like when we can use key presses and stuff. Blueprints. This is like a little graph, and I want to talk to the light that's in that world. I have it selected. Right-clicking it, it says, "Oh, let's create a reference to it. I want to do something to this point light." So it's context sensitive. It knows what's being selected in the outliner, and it will say, "Let's do something to the point light." And that is a point light node. What do I want to do with it? Well, I said I want to toggle it off and on, right? So I'm going to toggle the visibility. And there it is. So this node has a few things. The target, what it's bringing in, right, the light. A pin right here that says execution. It's the data flow. This is what bangs it. This is what turns it off and on. And then I have what's here like a checkbox, which is like a boolean. Is it on or off? Do I want everything that's next to this thing to also turn invisible when it's on or not? All right. So let's do it on a key press. I want to put it on the key of the key of P and connect it. When I press it, I want you to toggle its visibility. First, I'm going to come over here and knock my pane down. Come on. There you go. And then we're going to go to this light that we really can't even see. You see it on the floor. That's how quickly it is to use blueprints, right? So let's do it with our camera, so our camera can pass through there. I want to. We really can't see this thing when I hit play because it's like code for us. All the way down to my details, I could say I actually want you to be. Don't hide it. So it's visible here, but it's hidden when I'm playing the game. If I take that away, I hit play. I come over, I can see it, and that's how I can debug it. And now let's use that idea of context sensitive. I want it to know when I overlap it and when I leave it, right? So on overlap and ending overlap are the two terms. Everything that's in blueprints is C++. I'm using C++ functions, and I'm learning them by using blueprints. I'm pseudocoding C++, which is really great. It's a didactic tool for learning C++. With it selected, I think it was. This thing in the center is called a sprite, so it's easier to grab, but it's harder to grab those edges. It now has a reference to the trigger box. And I add a little event for collision when I overlap it. When I begin overlapping it, I want it to turn off or on. Light goes off, light goes on, light goes off, light goes on. Like, this is the mechanics that you could build an entire, little game with, right? It's definitely a narrative. When I get close to this thing, it turns on. Oh, but I have to have the key first, check for if I have key, then turn on. That kind of stuff. The logic is all here. So it's really quick and simple to get going with blueprints. And we can do that as much as you guys want later on. But there's plenty of tutorials, especially in the VR class. I do a lot of blueprint stuff. So that's good. What we're going to do now is I'm going to stop recording. And what the class ends in like 10 minutes or 20 minutes. Let's go ahead and pack up everything, and we're going to follow Leader over to, I can show you our studios, just so you know where to find me because we're not going to meet again for 2 weeks, so you'll know where to find me in the interim.